Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this live event. Thank you to all the ones that are connecting uh, later on watching the recording. I'm always happy when I have the opportunity to interact with my audience, but today you will find an even bigger smile because it's the day of the launch of my book, Negotiation plus Influence equals Success. Now, uh, before we go into the topic, by the way, I received already a lot of uh, great questions from you. Thank you very much. I'm also here to answer some more questions, but do let me know from where you're connecting, right? So that we also get to see an idea about where is our audience today as you're watching this live event. We see already Simone from Italy, and then we have Giuseppe from Switzerland. Hello, and thank you very much. And let's see how many different countries we are going to see into this live event. And of course, a great pleasure to be able here to share with you. I'm going to start maybe also to sharing a bit the story of the book, right? I'm not only going to go with negotiation and influence in theory, but since the title is behind the book, also to tell you a bit more about, what's happened behind the scenes, which are the kind of things that you're not going to see somewhere else. And then we are going to go into the question that you've already answered to me. Thank you. A number of you have uh, taken my idea, when I made my LinkedIn post to send me your question. So I appreciated. We picked a variety of questions in a number of different topics, and then we are gonna go with the question from the audience. Remember, this is your event, so all the questions that you have, we will be happy to take them. So already lovely to see people from a number of different countries. That's fantastic. And then I suggest, we get started. Why don't we get started? And then, I know that a few people maybe may lose 1 or 2 minutes to connect. So, welcome to the ones that just joined. So, we said behind the book, how did they come up to this book? Why did it take me 60 years? I'm going to turn 60 in a couple of weeks. Why the 21st of September, just to be precise? So how did it take me so long to write a book? Well, because fundamentally, I am Italian. You spotted from the accent, right? That my English is not quite the one of Oxford. And, I always felt that writing was a bigger challenge. I remember when I wrote my first article for the Financial Times in 2016, I think I had to write it 5 times or something like this. So yes, inevitably, there is a difference between a mother tongue and somebody that does it as a foreigner. And but I did give it a try into writing my first book. My friend Amir had suggested me to go for self-publishing. I tried self-publishing, but really was not for me. So I dropped the project at a fairly early stage. Then I started writing in during COVID, actually in 2022. It was the end of the COVID, but still, the activity was a bit still, not much travel at the time still. So I said, well, it's a good opportunity to take the time to write a book. Fantastic. And I wrote all the chapter of the book. I didn't write, the introduction, the conclusion, and all those kind of things, but I wrote, a good number of the chapter. And then, luckily COVID finished, travel restarted, and so I parked this book and I left it in my computer for a long while. Then last year, I was in Bali at the conference of the Global Guru. as you know, in 2024 I was number 3. This year I was number 5, and number 1, sorry. And at the conference, I met an editor. I met Mustafa, that was owning a company, and he strongly encouraged to write a book. And then I said, okay, let me do it. So what I did, I took 5 weeks in Phuket, in Thailand, in January and February. And during this period, I focus on book writing. By the way, it was quite a nice setting. I was inspired, by the view of the sea and the sunny weather of every single day. So that made it. So hopefully this improved the quality of the book. And to make it even better, while I was in Phuket, I received the news that I won the award for the best global guru for negotiation in 2025. So that's even increased my motivation to write a good book and make something that you will find useful. We'll see in a moment whether you will indeed find it useful. And well, of course, you will see it when you get the book at home. But enough about the behind the scene story. I think you also want to get some insight about negotiation and influencing. Listen, I have received a number of questions. I try to pick up questions in different type of field so that I could satisfy people that were interested more in negotiation, more in influencing, more in career negotiation. So let's get started with the first one. Let's start with the first one, and then of course we're going to pick up some more questions from the audience if there is something. Here is the first one. I hear contradictory advice about who should make the first offer in negotiation. What is your view, Giuseppe? Now, the theory is fairly straightforward. If you do not know the market well, let the other party talk first. If you know the market well, be the first one to talk. Because by being the first one to talk, you take advantage of this anchoring effect. With your offer, you set an anchor, you set a reference, and most of the people will make a counter offer which is not aggressive enough. So basically, by making the first offer, you shape the deal. Now, another thing which is important is not only make a number, but make a rational, lengthy explanation on how you came up to that number, and also outline a list of issues. Don't just say the price is X, but talk about the whole offer. So you want to talk about price, about payment terms, about volume, about innovation collaboration, about any other kind of things which are important to you in that negotiation. Let me share to you a small story, and then I'm going to ask for your opinion. Now, once I went to meet a supplier, and I guess, they really wanted to take the anchoring advantage. So when I entered the conference room, they had already put their proposal on flip charts. So as I entered the room, their offer was already there. So there was no doubt who was going to make the first offer, because he was already on the wall, on the flip charts. Now I want you to think for a few seconds. Was it a good idea, or was it not a good idea? What kind of positive things do you see? What kind of negative things do you see? Now, since there is always a bit of delay between your written answers and the time they arrive on the system, probably we are not going to make it a live interaction. But let me tell you already what are my views on this topic. Of course, on the positive side, yes, they could take advantage of the anchoring. So, they could shape the deal, they could outline the proposal, and mention not only the price, but the different elements that were part of the proposal. Now, what is negative in this type of approach is that if you do the anchoring too early, then you stop the communication. In a normal dynamic in negotiation, you want to make sure that you are taking some time first, to connect with your counterpart, and second, into the discovery or exploration phase. So you want to spend time asking questions, listening, trying to understand more about the interests and priorities of the two parties. Now, if you start with the anchoring so quickly, then you're immediately positioning the negotiation as a win-lose type of negotiation. Otherwise stated, you make it more difficult to create value, to explore ideas, to come up with creative solutions, because once the number is mentioned in a negotiation, then the focus is already on the price negotiation and less into the other opportunities to create value. Very good. Thank you very much. How about going for the second question? Do you have a simple trick to become more persuasive in my communication? Now, a simple trick is this one, in my opinion. Try to talk about what's in it for them rather than talking about what's in it for you. Let me give you a real life example. Right. Of course, it was a confidential matter, but many years, more than 10 years have passed. So I guess that we are good with this. Now, let's go back to my salary negotiation with Merck. I wanted to join Merck. And one of the things that was important to me was to continue my teaching activity. I was already teaching at a number of leading business schools, and I wanted to continue to do it. Now, imagine me giving the message to the HR director and say, listen, I'm already teaching at a number of leading business schools. It's something that I enjoy very much. It gives me the opportunity to meet some of the brightest people in the world. When I come back to the office, I feel full of energy. It's so important for my growth, for my passion, for my satisfaction to continue this teaching activity. So I want to ask you that in my employment contract, we add a clause that indicates that I can continue my teaching activity. Now you see this message? Is this persuasive? So, because I'm mainly talking about what's in it for me. Now, let's try to make it more persuasive and reframe it talking about what's in it for them. Then the message sounds like this. I'm already teaching at a number of leading business schools. It's a great opportunity to build the brand of Merck with some of the brightest people in the world and to attract talents into the company. For instance, with my current employer this year, we hired 4 MBAs from IMD, 1 from INSEAD. We did an activity with the Oxford students in Dubai. There is a huge value in my presence at those leading business schools. We should definitely continue to do it. So, next time you want to try to persuade someone, try to think it over. How about if I reframe the message talking about what's in it for them rather than what's in it for me? I hope this helps. Let's go with the next question. I struggle to make good questions during a negotiation. Can you give me some guidance? Well, the first piece of guidance is prepare your questions in advance. Because, if you prepare a question on the spot, especially, if you're not well trained, if something that, you never did a specific training on the topic, then you ended up, making a quick question in 2 seconds. If instead, you take 30 seconds and you prepare it in advance, then you're going to be better off, preparing a better question. I will say the second piece of advice that I will give you is in negotiation, you want to use as much as possible open-ended question. the one that start with how, with what, with why. But let's compare a bit those three type of questions. There is, by the way, an interesting article that was published in September 2024 by Jordi Koitbach, one of the professor that works with Conti Advanced Business Learning. And Jordi, in his article, made a study using artificial intelligence that compared the effectiveness of different type of open-ended questions. Let me share with you, let's say, the summary of his research. The why questions are the ones that help you collect more information, but they also make the people more defensive. The how question collect less information, but people answer them more easily. The what questions are somewhere in between. So my pragmatic advice, try to use as much as possible how and what questions. So whenever you want to ask a why question, try to reformulate it using how or what. So for instance, let's say that one of your internal stakeholder ask you, oh, listen, I need your information by Friday this week. You know, a very tight timeline. You want to ask them, why by Friday? Then you say, well, Margaret, help me understand. What is behind this tight timeline of Friday for this information? So, you're still asking a why question, but you ask it to use it what, and that makes it more appealing. Okay, let's move on to the next question. My partner keeps telling me that I'm not a good listener. How can I get better? Well, if I may, my guess is that it's a male who wrote this message because, typically, yeah, the statistic indicates that women tend to be better listener. Now, how can I be a better listener? By the way, listener, is important for everything. It's important for your private life, for your negotiation, for influencing, and for all kind of leadership task. Now, let me share with you 3 techniques that can help you to become a better listener. The first one, repeating 1 to 3 last words or critical words that the other party is mentioning. So let's say that you're meeting one of your engineers and he talks, with enthusiasm about the new machine that your company has designed. With this new machine, we can make 28,000 packs per hour. 28,000. You see, you just repeat the critical word or the last words with a question mark, and then you encourage the other person to give you some more information on the topic that they just mentioned. Second technique, on one end, on the other end. So whenever you get some information, you summarize them into categories. On one end, you put the information that you want to neglect. On the other end, the information you want to focus. Because the trick of this technique is that the people will talk about what you're mentioning at the end, not what you're mentioning at the beginning. So let's say that I'm talking with a stakeholder. Let's go back to when I was working in procurement. I'm working with a stakeholder that is not very happy about procurement. Then the stakeholder may say, Giuseppe, I find working with procurement so painful, right? You have so many processes, so many compliance rules and RFP and getting 3 offers, and you're so slow. I know that you could help me to get more value for my budget and that you can get me to choose the best supplier. But, on the other side, frankly, if I have to make it so slow and so complicated, I would rather do the work on my own. A fairly tough message, isn't it? So what you do is you put the negative on the beginning, the positive at the end. So if I understand well, John, on one end, you are finding work with procurement slow, complicated, with lots of compliance process, RFP, and 3 offers. But on the other end, we can help you to get more value for the budget and choose the right supplier. Yes, and I never get enough budget, so it will help me that if I could get a better value from it, etc. You see how you shifted the talk. The third technique for listening, paraphrasing. It is summarizing in a few words the key message that you get from somebody else, and then you check whether it's correct. Do I get it right? Is that correct? So, whenever you're getting somebody, just summarize what they just said. My advice is don't make it too long. People don't want to have everything repeated to them. Don't give your advice. Don't give your judgment. Don't talk about yourself and don't bring your autobiography. Just summarize what the other person is saying. By the way, something that you don't need to make the important meeting with the strategic suppliers to do it. You can practice with your kids, you can practice with your partner, with your colleagues, etc. A very powerful technique in all streams of life. Now, by the way, I see that there is already a first question. That's great. This is your LinkedIn Live, and I want you to take your question. Just let me first, before we take the question, just let me say one important thing. Now, the book is available as of today, and my goal was really to make it very pragmatic. So I created 67 short paragraphs. I created 67 short paragraphs. Each one can be read in 3 minutes. But not only that, if a paragraph is important for you and you want to go more in depth, then I created a special resource for the book reader where you can also get one article and one video on each paragraph. So if you want short information, 3 minutes on a topic. If you want to go more in depth, then you can find a video and an article for each of the paragraphs. So I put a lot of work, a lot of effort into this book, and you can have it with a 40% discount until September 17. Now, if you're interested to buy it, I will love it if you will buy it today, because of course, we are at the launch phase. So it will help on the Amazon ranking if you will buy it. If you're interested to buy it, I will love it if you will buy it today. And so here we go. And you find the link on the chat, and that will be great if we can do it. So, okay, there was a comment on the chat. Let's see. Okay, there was a question. Will a junior a junior make the first offering? How should his manager prepare him so that he's successful? Well, I think if whether you are a junior or a senior, the problem is, do you know the market? I guess that's really what our manager can prepare one of our direct reports, that they really know the market to make the first offer correctly. Because if you're a junior and you make an offer that is too high or too low, then either you make a bad deal or you lose credibility, because you lose credibility because of the fact that your number is not appropriate. So let me be more specific, Regina. If, I don't know, you're buying a machine and the cost of this machine is between 43 and 47 euro per piece, if you're a buyer, maybe your first offer should be 41.70, 41.10. 42.05. Something slightly lower than the seller limit, but still within reason. If instead I ask 20, then I'm just losing credibility because my counterpart understand that I don't know the market. By the way, you may also notice that what helps you to make a better anchor is to give unrounded numbers. So you are selling your Harley Davidson, sell your Harley Davidson for 31,650. That will be a much more credible number. Thank you. Good question. All right. So again, there are other questions that you had sent me beforehand. Why don't we pick the next one? And of course, happy to take the question. Okay, listen, there is a question is, I would like to buy the book, however, does Amazon deliver to Switzerland? Well, it's a good question, Giuseppe, because I am seeing strange message from people that cannot find the book on Amazon. Now, I think that Amazon is trying to channel people to buy book from certain location. So I guess that if you are in Switzerland, they want you to buy from Amazon.fr if you are on the French side, and from .de if you are on the German side. So maybe if you go to .com or .co.uk, which will be the logical site because of the English, you may be redirected. If they don't allow you to ship the book to Switzerland, then try to go to FR and or DE, and you should be able to get it there. But give it a go. I'm sure that it's possible because other people have bought the book, but Amazon is playing strange tricks to try to direct people to certain websites. I'm afraid this is behind my control, and since today is the launch, I don't have enough experience on how those things are working. But thank you. So let's go with the next question that we got from our audience. Any tips on influencing senior stakeholders? Now, if I may, allow me to share a real life story. 2005, I was joining a new employer as procurement director for Europe, and one of the tasks that the CPO gave me was to try to get the buy-in from the head of the business unit. Or one of the biggest business unit was not collaborating with procurement. They pretty much were doing the things on their own. So my job was to influence the senior stakeholder so that they will start collaborating with procurement. Now, I prepared for this meeting and I said, well, here procurement really has a bad image inside the company. I have to start changing it. So let me show a proactive can-do kind of attitude so that I approach the meeting showing that, we are a positive, dynamic group and we can do many things. So I know it will not be easy because, of course, I had just joined, and this guy, his name was Michel, had been with the company for 15 or 20 years. I was a director, he was an executive vice president. I didn't know anyone. He was well known, appreciated by everyone, always extremely elegant. Now I go and have the meeting with Michel. And I start the meeting and I try to convey this proactive attitude. So whenever we were discussing about something, we'll say, well, Michel, let me check this. Well, we can analyze the data. We can do this. I find out, or whatever. So we had the meeting. At the end of the meeting, all the action was for me. And when I was doing something, he will be raising the bar, he will ask him for something else, etc., etc. And the collaboration never really moved in the direction that it should have gone. Well, we did a couple of projects together. Of course, there was some success, but nowhere to the kind of successful influencing that I should have achieved. So, as I reflect back 20 years later on this episode, and of course, as I continue to manage senior stakeholders for another 13 years of corporate life, let me share with you the kind of things that I do in order to increase my chance to influence senior stakeholder. The first one is profiling. What I mean is doing the research about the people that you're interacting. Not only about the kind of official information that you find on their LinkedIn profile, that you find on the intranet, but ideally also through your network, so that you discover some more about their communication styles, about their hobbies, about their hidden agendas. Sometimes I learned something like, well, really, the CFO and the head of supply chain really hate each other. So, don't ever suggest, that they do the collaboration together, because this is going to put you in the wrong spot. Or don't mention that you're a good friend of one if you want to have a good relationship with the other. Or maybe you learn something like, Jack is going through a divorce. At this moment, it's not the good timing to do those kind of things, because he just wants to be left on his own. Or maybe, he's fighting with another, to become vice president. So these are, the kind of information that can help you. Then, when you meet a new stakeholder, I always like to go with a fairly extensive introduction. I don't just say, I'm Giuseppe, I'm the new procurement director. I will be saying, I'm Giuseppe, I worked in those company before, I lived in these countries, I'm married with this, I have 3 children, and I like to play tennis, and etc., and I teach at business schools, whatever. And then this will multiply the chances that we find commonalities. And of course, if I done some research, I make sure that I put the element of commonalities directly in my presentation, so that increase the chance of bonding with the other person. When I go and meet a senior stakeholder for the first time, I go on my own. It is easier to build the trust on a one-to-one basis than when there is a group. And I also don't bring presentations. The focus of the first meeting is to build a human relationship. If I start bringing a computer and we both look at the computer, then, we are just losing an opportunity for connection. As I also, you may have anticipated from my story, I also make sure that there are action for both parties, not that all the action are for me. Because when there are also action from my senior stakeholder, there are 2 benefits. When they do something, you can give them feedback, so usually positive feedback. And the second, that it creates the basis for incremental activities. As they do something, then you can then go with the next, and the next point. Maybe one more tip. As much as possible, when you're meeting the senior stakeholder, rather than meeting them in their office, try to meet them in a neutral place. Because this increases the chances that you can have a peer-to-peer type of relationship, as opposed to adult to parent, parent to child kind of relationship, top dog versus underdog. So here are a few tips. I hope you find it useful. Happy to see that some of the people have already bought the book. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And now, how about, some of the other questions that we had received beforehand? Fantastic, Mauro. Thank you very much. I want to ask my boss for a raise. How should I structure my message? Well, I first, the first one, the problem advice that I will give you, I'm not sure, of course, the person that raised the question where they are, but the most important thing is to choose the right timing. Usually the best timing to ask a question is not when the company gives raise. In March or April for many companies where people have the process of a salary adjustment. Because during those periods, there are very strict salary bands. Okay, the raise based on your current compensation, your evaluation, and those kind of things can be between 2.7 and 4.2. So, the room for negotiation is very limited. I would suggest that you ask for a question at the best timing. The best timing from your perspective, when you got promoted, when you get additional responsibility, where you've just completed a successful project, when the company really needs you. Then, if we go into the methodology to ask for a raise, relationship building, of course, you want to make sure that your boss is motivated, feels good, and is going to fight for your raise. Then a list of your achievement, a short list of achievement, and then a specific request. I believe those achievements are well above, my job description. I believe that they deserve a special gesture from the company. So I wanted to ask you for a 12% increase as of the 1st of November. I hope this helps. Thank you. Do we have some more questions? By the way, remember, this is your event. So, if you do have a question, you can ask them. And let's see if we have other questions from the. I know you're a networking master. Can you share some advice during the LinkedIn Live? Okay, well, yes, I have to say, yes, I love networking because I love people. Fundamentally, it is something that comes natural to me because I love to interact with different people. But let's try to give you some advice that will be applicable also to people that may be on the introvert side. And personal advice, right? What do you do to maintain let's talk about internal and external networking because they're both important. Let me say some of the things that I did when I had a corporate. I spent over 25 years in a corporate environment. So what are some of the things that I found useful during my corporate life? One of the things that you can do, for instance, is join cross-functional teams, so that you have access also to a variety of colleagues from other functions. Or maybe you join a regional or a global initiative where you are collaborating with colleagues from other countries or from the global regional headquarters. Then you try to get opportunities maybe to make presentation, right? So to make presentation to senior management and those kind of things. And another thing that you can do is also join or create a group of people inside your company. For instance, I know that many companies have, for instance, a women's association. So if you're a female, maybe you want to join one of those associations. I remember that when I was at Novartis, I created a group. The name was in French, Papa Présent, Enfant Gagnant. So it was a book for fathers. So that when the father is present, then the child will grow up more properly. So we created this group. The first 9 sessions we did it with an external expert, and then we continued to exchange among fathers, and he created some fabulous bonding with a number of fathers that I continue to consider friends also over time. Also, when I was, for instance, at Novartis, or during the winter time, I will be organizing the ski and fondue. So I will be inviting the people in my network to go skiing in the evening and then go for an evening of fondue. And then, I will have, 30, 40 colleagues that will join us for a fun evening together. These are all examples of networking. By the way, this also became external networking because when I left Novartis, I started creating a sort of a newsletter. It was called It's Friday. And what do I mean with this Friday is on a Friday evening at the end of my workday, I will be sending a joke, a story, or something else of this type, use something light to wish a good weekend to the people in my network. And this were my former colleagues at P&G, at Novartis, some of the great customers, suppliers, I worked with, so that I could continue to stay in touch with those people. By the way, let me give you another example about staying in touch with your former colleagues. This comes from one of my former P&G colleagues. And what he did now is a C-level executive. And what he did is after he left P&G, whenever he was making a move to another company or a promotion or something else, he was writing to all his previous boss and then say, hello, Eddie, I'm glad to let you know that I was promoted director now in this company. One of the key things that helped me to be successful was stakeholder management. I remember that you helped me very much on this topic, so I want to thank you very much for this and delighted to stay in touch. How are you doing, etc. Now you can see how in this way he kept in touch with the influential people that he had worked in the past. Now, of course, there are a number of other initiatives. Joining conferences is another powerful one. Now, another thing that I did in 2007, I created an association of procurement directors. And this was a wonderful idea to stay connected with other procurement executives. Now it's 18 years that we have been working together, and it was very helpful to grow professional and also to expand my network in my field of competence. I hope I gave you a few ideas. You pick up the one that resonate with you. Fantastic. Now, here we have a few questions from the audience. Why don't we go for a question for the audience? Okay, let's see. By the way, there is here a tip from Maria. We create a social network corporate enterprise to facilitate communication between business leader and plant worker. Fantastic, Maria. Thank you very much. A concrete example. Okay, here we have another question. Could you quickly explain the BATNA? Yes, so BATNA is best alternative to a negotiated agreement. It is what you're gonna do if you're not able to reach an agreement with somebody. So let's say that you wanna buy a new car and you decide to buy a Toyota Corolla. You go to the Toyota dealer next to your house, but you dislike them completely. You say, I don't want to deal with these people. No way. I'm not going to put my feet again into this garage. The button is, what are you going to do which does not include this garage? Maybe you go to another Toyota garage in another country. Maybe you decide to look also at Suzuki and at Volkswagen. Maybe you decide to stay with your old car. Maybe you decide to use a car sharing system. Maybe you go for a motorbike instead of a car. Maybe you use public transportation. Maybe you go for parallel import, etc., etc. These are all the alternative. The button is the best alternative. Once you listed all the alternative, the best one is your button. Fantastic. By the way, thank you very much, Giuseppe, for ordering the book. That's great. Let's see. There is another question. Natasha, do you have an advice for not just networking, but warming leads in a live event, like a conference, when the window of opportunity is limited, but potentially high ROI? Warming leads in a live event. I mean, Natasha, of course, what you want to do during a live event, it's very basic, but make sure that you have business cards, right? Because people, you may send them a LinkedIn invitation, etc., but people may get many and they forget. And I am still a fan of giving a paper copy. You're more likely to remember people that you're going to find the business card afterwards, as opposed to people that you're only exchanging the information electronically. And by the way, now there are all kind of nice business cards which contain plenty of things, from the QR code to other kind of chips. But I will say that's something that I will do. Then, probably another thing that you will do is having an event or something where you can invite them. So just then say, okay, now I'm going to bother you with a sales speech of half an hour. Go offer them an opportunity. Say, listen, we do have a live events about this. Why don't you come and join us? I think, that's probably a more positive opportunity to give a motivation for people to continue the exchange than just, listen to my sales speech. I hope this helps, Natasha. Okay, let's see. There are other questions, so let's go to the next one. Alessandro, referring to salary, you said before about the market knowledge. How to get reliable information from market-specific company? Can we rely on studies, report, or better to get information from people? Great question, Alessandro. By the way, I do have a chapter in the book about career negotiation. So this is one of the topics that we mention into the book. So let's talk about how to get market information. Now, there are a number of resources on the web, and probably these are the kind of things that you can find on the search. I think Glassdoor is the most well-known one. If you're a senior executive, I will also encourage you the payindex.com. The pay index, because it's based on executive search data, so it's more for senior executive. So if you're going for a job at 400, 500,000 euros, dollars, or whatever, maybe you want to get information, benchmarking information at more senior type of level. Now, of course, you can use surveys. So there are a number of surveys that are purchased either by search companies or by the marketing director association or those kind of things. I am a big fan of getting information from people. And Alessandro, I'm sure that you build over your time a good amount of people that you know, but most of the people don't like to talk about money. So the trick is the following. Let's imagine that I want to get some salary information from you, Alessandro. If I ask you, Alessandro, how much money are you making? More likely you don't want to answer this question. But if I know that you are a sales director in Milan, then I may ask you the question, Alessandro, I'm currently interviewing for a position of senior sales manager with Pirelli in Milan. I know that you're already working in Milan and you work in sales. Based on your knowledge of the Italian market and recognizing that I have 7 years of experience plus an MBA from Bocconi, what will be the right compensation range for me for such a position with Pirelli in Milan? So you see, you ask information about your position, don't ask information about their salary. Okay, fantastic. By the way, we have somebody else who purchased the book. Thank you very much. That's so nice of you. I'm really excited about this. By the way, I quickly share again the brief about the book. Remember, the book is available with a 40% discount until September 17. If you buy today, even better, because it will help me with the Amazon ranking. But most important, I want you to get value, even if you don't buy the book. Do feel free to ask me questions and to get something. By the way, if you really have little money, then you can buy the ebook for €3. I hope that any professional can afford €3 for a book, and I think you're gonna get a lot of value, and If you buy the paper book, that's probably a bit nicer. Next time that we see each other, I will also be delighted to dedicate it for you. Fantastic. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Now, let's thank you very much. Let's see. Did we have more question from the people in that they wrote me before? I want to make sure that at least, I addressed all the I think, if we finish with the question that we got before the workshop, I just let me take this opportunity to thank you very much for your active participation, for your nice comment, for the positive energy that you brought to the exchange, for the nice encouragement that you shared in the chat. So I love it and look forward to continue the learning journey with you. By the way, one last favor. If you like the book, I would love it if you take a few minutes to write a review on Amazon. By the way, you should not write the review immediately after writing the book, because otherwise Amazon will discard it. You can write the review this weekend. That will be amazing. Thank you very much. All the very best. Delighted to continue learning together. I hope this event help you to strengthen your knowledge into the field of negotiation and influencing. And I hope you'll find the book useful to help you grow, succeed, because the title of the book, Negotiation plus Influencing equals Success, is really the idea of the title is that I wanted to give you practical tools that can help you succeed internally and externally. All the very best. Thank you. Have a wonderful week.